Hello, my name is Kathy Cherry, and I will be taking you through the third session in this series, Managing Stress in the Workplace, a topic many of us are all too familiar with, but yet an area that is more in our control than we may think. Our topic last session, mindfulness, is an important skill to build for many reasons. It is a critical tool to have in your toolbox when you are dealing with stress and anxiety. As we become more mindful, we become more aware of how we are personally affected, both negatively and positively, by stress. And then we are able to use stress in our favor to help us grow. Yes, stress, believe it or not, is meant to help us. So we are going to start with a video by Dr. Kelly McGonigal, a health psychologist, talking about the physical effect on our bodies when we choose to look at stress as helpful. There will be a slight pause before the video starts, so just be a little bit patient. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, if you were actually in this study, you'd probably be a little stressed out. Your heart might be pounding, you might be breathing faster, maybe breaking out into a sweat. And normally we interpret these physical changes as anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead as signs that your body was energized, was preparing you to meet this challenge? Now, that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, well, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage. Over a lifetime of stressful experiences, this one biological change could be the difference between a stress-induced heart attack at age 50 and living well into your 90s. And this is really what the new science of stress reveals, that how you think about stress matters. So my goal as a health psychologist has changed. I no longer want to get rid of your stress. I want to make you better at stress. And we just did a little intervention.
To take a moment now to reflect back on a recent stressful situation of your own that you encountered. Think about your perception of the situation, how your body reacted physically to the situation. What tools did you use in the moment to cope with the situation, if you used any at all? Were you even aware of it? And how did the stress help you in that situation, and ultimately what good came out of it? Have you ever looked at that side of it? Some great questions to reflect back on. Now let's take a look further into how the two parts of our nervous system react during a stressful situation. The autonomic nervous system consists of two parts. The sympathetic nervous system, our gas pedal, which is responsible for engaging our fight or flight reactions. And when we use it for what it is intended, these reactions are acute, short-lived, and/or sometimes emergency situation. I'm sure you can relate to some of the reactions that you see along the left side there. Heart beating faster, fast, shallow breaths, that type of thing. Maybe even a stomach ache. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest system, or our brake pedals. When we are able to engage our relaxation response through techniques such as mindfulness, deep breathing, exercise, perception techniques, as you just saw Dr. McGonigal talk about, We are able to engage the brakes and bring ourselves back to homeostasis, which generally takes around 20 to 60 minutes following an acute stress response. Engaging our brakes is critical in regards to long-term health and allows stress to help us grow versus taking us out. Our breath is one of our most positive and powerful tools. As you can see, the slow, deep breath, that's a great way to take yourself out of that stressful situation. Through practice and engaging that relaxation response, it is critical in preventing long-term damage that happen as a result of staying in that heightened state, having the gas pedal all the way to the floor all the time for extended periods of time. Staying in that state ultimately leads to major health issues from the cortisol running through the body, which is not meant to happen. Heart disease, sleep issues, weight issues, autoimmune disease, heightened irritability and anxiety, to name just a few. We will discuss some methods to engage the relaxation response and practice ways to build your muscle memory so that it engages on its own later in this lesson. First, let's look at how stress helps us as it is. What do we know for sure? We know that change is constant. Throughout daily life, change is constant. But let's talk about the great things stress does for us in handling this constant change. It improves our performance through the release of adrenaline, increasing our reactions and reflexes, reducing tiredness and fatigue, and also acting as a painkiller so we can increase our endurance. Why you see so many athletes, say in the Olympics or in a high-level situation, hit records that they've never been able to hit before because of that stressful situation actually improved their performance. If you're feeling stressed, then you tend to go about trying to rectify a problem. So as you see in the second, you prepare, plan, or fix a situation to lessen the stress, ultimately making it a better situation and hopefully learning something. Stress is a cognitive enhancer. It helps our brain focus on the task at hand. When we think of it in terms of what it was meant to be used for, that fight or flight, we're able to narrow our focus on the task at hand. And then we also see slight levels of increase of cortisol, increasing our memory. So mentally, that can truly be a positive. The key here is to keep it short-lived and utilize your stress management techniques to avoid too much cortisol. If we think about the word stress, the true definition is that it is a stimulus for change. It is meant to help us grow. So at its core, it's neither good nor bad, but how we choose to use it. Let's look at the pressure performance chart as seen here. Think about it in terms of exercise. When we exercise, we do it to better ourselves, to increase our health and well-being. In order to do so, we must push our bodies outside of its day-to-day functioning or outside of the comfort zone. We have to stretch it a little bit. We put stress on our heart and lungs, pushing our aerobic capacity to work harder, which results in a more efficient system, ultimately enhancing our mental, emotional, and physical states through doing so. It doesn't always feel great, and when we push harder outside of our comfort zone or beyond what we typically do, we learn what we are capable of and increase our results. What we get out of it is why we choose to do it. Growth has occurred through stress on our body. Problems set in when we don't take our foot off the gas pedal, when we allow ourselves to stay in that stress state for too long. And so now we're crossing over the threshold for optimum performance, continually adding new stressors without learning to recognize our own limits and engaging our relaxation response tools. As a result, we start seeing fatigue, poor judgment, affecting us mentally, and exhaustion and burnout physically. Identifying where your threshold is and what tools are most effective for you takes trial and correction through personal awareness. How it is helping you to peak your performance and at what point do you need to engage their brakes. There are many tools that we can add to our own toolbox. The more we arm ourselves, the easier it becomes. Bruce Lee said it best. Under duress, we don't rise to our expectations, we fall to our level of training. What is your level of training? The roots of negative stress lie deep in the nervous system. We need tools that directly target that system to transform our habitual responses. We need to regularly practice our skills when we are not in that fight or flight mode. We need to build our resiliency to take control back over the stress. A few important tools that help build resiliency when practiced while in the rest mode begin. An extremely impactful tool to start building awareness around, and we will talk in more depth in our next session, is the energy management cycle. What we choose to eat, how many hours of quality sleep we are getting, and whether or not we are physically active and moving throughout our day can affect whether we are able to pull ourselves out of the heightened state or we are pushing ourselves farther into it. I encourage you to start thinking about how food, movement, and sleep are affecting you on a daily basis, and we will dig much farther into it during our next session. To work through these tools on your own, head over to the training portal to discuss what tools have helped you in the past, what you are going to work on in the discussion board, and you will also have the opportunity to work on these skills through 2 exercises as well. Look for a group coaching session soon to talk through your great new skills with your coaches. Thanks, and have a great day.